Well, good morning. It's good to be able to talk to you this morning. Hopefully, you can hear me just fine. I'm going to go right to it. Exodus chapter 1, verse 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali; Gad and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt. And if you remember, Joseph was in Egypt because those guys, his brothers, actually sold him into slavery. And through a series of different things, he ended up being number 2 man in Egypt. And there was a famine. And so to get food, they all went over there. And they eventually just moved over. And so the beginnings of the nation of Israel all ended up in Egypt. That's how we got there. Verse 5, verse 6 actually. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied greatly and became exceedingly numerous, so that the land was filled with them. So there's lots and lots of Israelites now. Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So this new king, who didn't know about Joseph and wasn't a fan of the Israelites, he decided, okay, we got to do something about these guys because there's too many of them, and we're going to be in trouble. Verse 11, so they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. In other words, that's where they're going to keep all the grain and things like that. And that's what these Israelites did as slaves. Verse 12, but the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They were really cruel to them. All right. Verse 14, they made their lives bitter with hard labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their hard labor, the Egyptians used them ruthlessly. Verse 15, the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah. Verse 16, when you help the Hebrew women in childbirth and observe them on the delivery stool, if it is a boy, kill him, but if it is a girl, let her live. All right, so the king is telling the midwives, and midwives were people, they were women who helped women give birth. They weren't really nurses, they just specialized in that. And the king said, look, if you notice that's a boy, kill him. See, this is how they were going to keep the Israelites from multiplying. The midwives, however, verse 17, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. See, they didn't want to have to answer to God. And there's a lesson there, okay? Generally speaking, we are to obey government, and we're supposed to obey our teachers and our leaders. But if our leaders tell us to do something that is against what God would say, we're going to have to go with what God would say. All right? So there's a lesson right off the bat there. Verse 18, then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. See, they kind of lied. See, sometimes it's okay to tell a little white lie like that. Verse 20, so God was kind to the midwives. See, told you it was okay once in a while for the right reason. And the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people, every boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. All right, so now it's going to be harder for them to get away with it because now they're actually told to throw these children into the Nile. Now that's all of chapter 1. Now I know we're looking forward to learning about Moses. We're going to meet him tomorrow morning when you come back for the next edition of Take 5.